Good morning, everyone. Pam Jacobson, your host of Three Things You Need to Know. Welcome. We've got some new folks joining us today. So for those of you who've not met me before, I am the CEO of the Healing Sanctuary. I'm also the Chief Wellness Officer for a company called Level 10 Health. My contact information is in the chat area. You can reach me through my website, email, and I also put my phone number there. Anything I talk about today, your supplements, your treatments, testing, anything I might mention today is absolutely something that I can help you with, and you can reach me through those various contacts if you are interested. I also love your feedback, questions. If there's topics you want to know more about, please let me know. I have a long history, over 20 years, in the wellness side of health. But prior to that, I was in conventional medicine, mainly in the area of oncology, cancer care, a little bit in women's health. I'm master's trained in Chinese medicine, and I am board certified in functional medicine. What that means is today I work with clients all over the country, helping them to restore normal function in order to have that wonderful quality of life and vitality and good aging and longevity that we all deserve. So regardless of where you are in the country, I can help you if you need that kind of help. So let's get started. I have three what I think are great topics today. The first of which is wine. Anyone? Why not? Right? I love wine. I frequently include trips to the wine country in my vacations. Paso happens to be one of my favorite places to go. And, many of us have heard or been led to believe anyway, that there's a lot of health benefits in drinking wine, particularly red wine. And that's what I wanted to talk about today was how did we get that impression? Well, there is a compound, a plant compound in red wine in particular, that is called resveratrol. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because it's in the news right now for helping with the protection and even potentially treatment for people who have the COVID virus. So, there's so much research going on and so many people in different fields of health and wellness that are looking at all of the things that we could be doing to help ourselves in the face of this health crisis that is currently happening. So the resveratrol is one of those things. It's been extensively studied already. It has many, many benefits that we're going to talk about, but it's in the news right now for its big time anti-inflammatory benefits. It is being shown to be helpful in reducing the cytokine storm or the runaway inflammation that happens in people who get the COVID virus in its most severe form, and typically would end up hospitalized. So let's talk about resveratrol. As I said, it's a plant compound, a polyphenol, if you will. It's considered an antioxidant. So if you're not, you've probably all heard that term, but a lot of people don't really know what antioxidant means. Oxidation is the best analogy I can make is like rust on a car, right? That's when it oxidizes and breaks down the material. So when it's in the body, when oxidation is in the body, and oxidation comes from all kinds of things. It can be, pollution that we're breathing, poor diet, and there's a certain level of oxidation that's just created by the metabolic function. Our little factories are producing some waste, and there is a level of oxidation that just naturally occurs in the body. So an antioxidant is any substance that counteracts that effect, right? That takes care of that kind of literal rusting that goes on inside the body. And there's many different ones, and resveratrol happens to be an antioxidant. It is known for or touted for its huge properties for regenerating the body all the way down to the cellular level. So it as I said, it's been well studied. So we understand that it has some really tremendous benefits. It is probably most known for reducing heart disease risk in many different facets, right? It helps with blood circulation. It helps with the blood vessels themselves. It can impact blood pressure. It can impact blood sugar, which has a big impact on our cardiovascular system. It also has great benefits for our brain and cognitive function, for our bones, for our immune health. It's been significantly studied in the prevention of cancer. as I said before, regulates blood sugar. It's highly anti-inflammatory, and it's antiviral and antimicrobial. So you can see where it would have some great benefits for us when it comes to the current COVID environment that we find ourselves in. So lots of great benefits. Really, honestly, it should be on your list of daily supplementation. Many multivitamins will have a little bit of resveratrol in the dose. It's generally recognized as safe, but there's not been a lot of research at higher doses, so we don't really know if you were taking it in massive doses. We do know you can have some side effects, some GI side effects in larger doses. It's generally considered safe between 250 and say 500 milligrams daily. So you'll want to look for that level of a dose so that you're getting, a decent kind of what I would think of as therapeutic level. But you do get some from your diet. You can get it from dark berries, like blueberries, for instance, are very high in resveratrol, bilberries, blackberries, organic raw cocoa, pistachios. So health tip, pistachios are really great for you. I use them every time I make a salad. I sprinkle some pistachios in there. You should try it. It's really amazingly good. And then the skins of grapes. Red grapes, right? They're a dark berry, so to speak, but the resveratrol is in the skins of the grapes. And then the fermentation process of wine makes it more readily available and absorbable. So yes, red wine does contain resveratrol, although there is a lot of argument and not a lot of study information to say how much you really get when you drink red wine and how much red wine you would have to drink in order to get a reasonable dose of resveratrol. Here's the issue I have with looking at red wine as your primary source for resveratrol is the processing of wine. It's a very high pesticide process, and it's an alcohol, and alcohol can be very, very difficult for most of us. It's not a great addition to our health regimen or our self-care regimen. So what I would say is, if you're healthy and you have a great self-care routine and you take care of yourself, there's no problem with having a glass of red wine, at dinner on a daily basis. But if you have any other disease processes happening, you're probably best to avoid, or you don't take good care of yourself, you're probably best to avoid all alcohol, really, including red wine, and get your resveratrol from your food, things like berries. Dark chocolate is another resource for you of resveratrol, or simply use it as a supplement. There's some great supplements out there. So there you have it. Some really good information. I think resveratrol belongs on the list of supplements that we could be using to protect ourselves in the current COVID environment, but also really supporting us in terms of healthy aging. And as I said, all of the major nutraceutical companies out there, the big ones that I use that I feel are really producing, high quality supplements. There's some good resveratrol supplements available. So happy to help you get access to that, but definitely add that to your list. So resveratrol, so wine, anyone? Absolutely, but do it if you're healthy. I would also say make sure that you know how the wine is processed, right? Look for organic, types of farming, talk to your winemaker. I typically get my wine, directly from the winemaker so that I know what's in it and how the process was done and all of that. So I would highly recommend it if you're going to be using wine on a regular basis. So topic number 2 was fungus AmongUS. And this really, this topic came up for me this week because I've had a couple of clients ask about it. But the way they ask about it is they say, well, I was told that I have candida or that I have a yeast overgrowth. But when we kind of went down the path, we couldn't figure out how it was that whoever told them that decided that that's what they had. So I wanted to talk about, because it is a common issue. It is a chronic condition in our culture. And it's important because what we're starting to see happening, especially in sick environments and hospital environments, are super candida or super yeast bugs. It's a different strain than the typical candida that we think of as candida albicans, with vaginal yeast infections and thrush and kind of the types of yeast things that we see normally as chronic in humans. It can be a significant issue when someone's immune system is really compromised. And it's a bit of a vicious cycle, right? If the immune system's low, yeast overgrowth is more likely, but the more yeast overgrowth you have, the more compromised the immune system gets. So it's a very vicious cycle. and one that we really should be careful about because it actually is quite common. So what I would say is, what is yeast? It is a fungus. It grows and is normal in the digestive tract of humans, and it's there to aid in digestion. However, when we damage that process, which we can through antibiotic use, high levels of unmitigated stress, poor diet, especially diets that are very high in sugar and carbohydrates, disease states like diabetes, for instance, some cancers, anything where the immune system is compromised, we will see yeast overgrowth. And typically it will be Candida albicans, but there are other strains of yeast and you can test for those, right? I do a 3-day stool study with most of my clients. And one of the things that it's looking at is the mycology, the fungal growth in the digestive tract. So what happens with stress and antibiotics and so forth is a disruption of our good bacteria, but also a change in our acid-alkaline balance. And that is what is needed. That balance is what is needed oftentimes to keep the yeast growth in check. So as I said before, it is a chronic health condition. Some of the symptoms that will help you maybe suspect that you have yeast would be things like developing brand new sensitivities and intolerances. That's a big tip off. If you were never, if something that you're eating now is a problem, but it was never a problem before, or all of a sudden you've become chemically sensitive, oftentimes that can be due to a yeast overgrowth, enduring fatigue, gas, bloating, weakened immune system, fungal nails, both fingernails and toenails, brain fog. Now, these symptoms also can be in many different types of health conditions, but so you can see where yeast may be overly thought of to be an issue. If somebody just presents in an office with fatigue and brain fog, a practitioner like myself has to at least think that Candida could be on that list. So, so what do we do about that, right? Well, first of all, if you're suffering any of these symptoms, if you're somebody who gets regular vaginal yeast infections, another area that we see issues with yeast are the corners of the mouth and the corners of the nose. If you have skin conditions there, a lot of times that can be a yeast overgrowth. A really thick coating in the mouth, on the walls of the mouth or the tongue, can sometimes also be yeast overgrowth. And so what can we do about that? Well, there's first of all, we can test to be sure of the strain. We can also, there's 3 approaches really to the treatment. First would be the cleansing process. And essentially that's having several days where we're working to reduce the yeast growth. And so that's usually a calorie restricted or a specific dietary approach. And we may use supplements or other things to help kind of kill off the overgrowth. You can get some die-off reaction from that and flu-like symptoms, but it's temporary and it's a good sign, tells us that the treatment's working. Then we move into diet maintenance. There's certain types of diets that you can follow that will help to kind of rebuild the proper function in the gut microbiome, pH balance, and so forth. And then there's just long-term maintenance and treatment for Candida. And I would say that it's a journey. It's a bit of a process. It takes some time, but it is not necessarily a difficult thing to do. There's lots of information out there on the internet about yeast overgrowth and what you can do about it. There's lots of products to take care of it. But again, if you want to work with somebody that can help you in that area, I'm the person that can do that for you and make sure that you get on the correct regimen. It needs to be personalized for each individual. The diets can be challenging and the supplements can be as well, and managing the die-off symptoms. So if you suspect that you have a yeast overgrowth, it's not a bad idea to work with a professional that can kind of walk you through that process. But this is something I definitely would consider, guys. If you feel like, you either haven't really taken very good care of yourself and things are really out of balance, it's very possible that you will have a yeast overgrowth. If you do have a good self-care plan, but you're still struggling with craving sugar or having regular yeast infections, then you may need to go through the actual treatment process to eradicate the yeast. So something important to consider. Okay, so item number 3 is the COVID update. And I've been doing this for the last several weeks, and it seems like it's something that you've all been interested in. I will continue for the time being, since there is some reportable news, and I'm always thinking about COVID also from the wellness and sort of natural medicine perspective. Today we talked about resveratrol. So again, I'm always looking at all of the other things that could be used both as treatment as well as prevention. And so we did, discuss resveratrol already today. I've already in the past talked about things like vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc. So tune into my previous videos for that information. So the update really, or the big news right now, obviously, is the development of a vaccine. Last week, I reported that Moderna they're teamed up with the National Institutes of Health, was leading the pack in reporting their data from their phase 1 trial. There's 3 phases when you're going to introduce a new vaccine or a new drug to the marketplace. Phase 1 is a safety trial to make sure that it is safe, actually. So it's done in a very small setting. And they were reporting that data last week. But they had already moved into phase 2, which is a larger safety study, and they begin then to look at efficacy. And were reporting throughout this last week that it did appear that the vaccine was safe and that it was producing both antibodies for the virus, but also T cells, which is a type of white blood cell in our immune system that has the killer function to eradicate things like viruses from the body. They were reporting that it did appear in phase 2 that was indeed happening, and they were granted permission to move then to phase 3, which they have begun. I want to say that the article, you can access it online. The NIH released an article or a statement admitting that this was record time to go from phase 1 to phase 3. Of course, there is a sense of urgency. I think for me personally, my biggest concern is, what steps and what safety measures are being skipped in order to speed this vaccine to the marketplace. As I said last week, there is a lot of money to be made in the development of this vaccine. First one to market really gets a tremendous amount of financial upside. Obviously, there's a sense of urgency in terms of human health, but make no mistake, there is a lot of money to be made here for the first one to get to the marketplace. And this is being fast-tracked, if you will, in terms of skipping a lot of the usual steps that would be required to take something like this from safety trials all the way to human trials and releasing it to the public. They have a stretch goal, according to the article, of releasing this by the end of 2020. They admitted it was a stretch goal, but I do believe that they are attempting to do that or make it early 2021. As I said, the phase 2 data does appear that it is producing antibodies. So what is a phase 3 trial? They are currently enrolling 30,000 human participants. So if you're interested in being one of those guinea pigs, you go to coronavirusprevencionnetwork.org, and I believe that can show you the process for throwing your name in the hat if you want to do that. But the purpose of the phase 3 trial, all of the phases are always still looking at safety. So we will continue to look at safety in phase 3, but now we're really looking to answer a few questions. Will this prevent me from getting the virus? If I get the virus after the vaccine, will it lessen the severity of the virus? And will it lessen the incidence of death due to the virus? So those are the questions that they're looking to answer in the phase 3 trial. It is a controlled and blinded trial, which means that you have the vaccine, or if you're a participant, you will either get the vaccine or you will get a saline placebo. So you will not know which you got. And the vaccine will be given in 2 doses. So you have your initial dose, and then 28 days later, you will have a second intramuscular injection is how it's delivered. So there's the information on what's happening with the vaccine. As I've said before, and I want to remind you all again, right now, your best protection is to wear your mask when you're out in public, to social distance, to avoid gatherings, especially gatherings where people are not going to be wearing their masks. And to, really accept the responsibility that is yours for your own immune protection, which is to take care of yourself, right? There's 4 pillars. Remember, sleep, manage your stress response, move your body every day, and eat a reasonably healthy diet. Those are the 4 key areas that you need to be paying attention to. And then you can augment or supplement with all of the things I've talked about previously. I think some of the most important things like vitamin D, now resveratrol is very clear. I've talked about melatonin at bedtime. There's a lot of things that you can be doing to help yourself. So there you have it. 3 things you need to know. I hope you found this informative. Again, if you have questions or comments, you can leave them here. You can also reach out to me for any topics you want me to talk about. I do have a question. Which area of the 4 do you think is most important? So the 4 pillars, the most important area without question is sleep. So if sleep is the only time that the body can repair itself. And so without good restorative, so it's not only just the length of time, which really should be 8 hours is your minimum. It's not just the length of time that you're in bed, but it's the quality of that sleep, the depth of that sleep. There's certain levels of sleep that you need to be in, and be in long enough during the night for certain things to repair, for the brain to flush, for your hormones to replenish and balance themselves. So sleep is number 1 most important. And then not number 2, but number 1.1, so slightly less important than sleep, is stress response management. So I want to be clear about that, guys. It's not just about diet and exercise. And that tends to be, especially in my client base, oftentimes what people focus on first. So that's an issue. Another question, movement, nutrient, stress, all lead into sleep improvement. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. They all serve one another. So how do you get better sleep? First of all, you plan for it, but you do all of those other things. You manage your stress, you move your body daily, you eat a reasonable diet, and you plan for sleep. I think you have to have a transition from waking to sleeping. So you need to have, 45 minutes or so off your electronics, a good sleep hygiene program, right? You turn off your TV, and you do relaxing kinds of activities, and you avoid anything that really stimulates the brain in that last half hour or so before you're going to bed. You can use melatonin to help balance the sleep. That's your hormone that helps you with good quality sleep. And you can look back in my previous videos to get more information. But I appreciate the questions. You guys all have a good week. I'm here every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. live. And then, of course, you can come back and look at this as a recording. And I'll look forward to seeing you all next week.